What I'm going to show you today is just how easy it is for this 12-point octagon blind to get set up with two guys back in the woods where you can't get heavy machines. If this is of any help to you, like and subscribe. Here we go. All right, so this is where we're at. We do have our access trail here that is along the boundary of the property, and then you can see this buckthorn infested ish that we've got to install in, and it's really thick. So we had to carve out our trail first along the boundary access, and then we've got our trail into the blind here. This is going to be hunter access, and we're just bringing them in piece by piece, and they are already pre-tapped, ready to go with nut driver lags. That's what the panels are, and insulated for noise. And then the windows are really nice. They have a Zeke, run that action, will you? The window action. So it's really quiet. It's got a counterbalance on the other side. That's what that weight is right there. And then in that groove, that aluminum channel right there, it is felt on aluminum. So that's why it's so quiet. All right, Zeke, we'll follow you in if you want to carry that panel back to where we're building. This is what I love about these blinds that are true hybrid blinds, meaning you can bow or gun hunt out of them, because a lot of the blinds that are sold today have skinny horizontal windows that they tell you can shoot a bow out of, but it is not easy. Whereas you can see the size of the hole on that one, super easy. And now this is the floor, and you can see right there, what's nice about this floor is they've already got it built. So if you want to do a trapdoor entry, which I love, and do a burlap around the front, or just screen it in with brush, hinge cutting, whatever you want to do, you can just cut that out and have your trapdoor entry right there. It's all ready to go for you. And a lot of the blinds on the market are impossible to do that. And then we've got the steel platform. You do not have to do that. They also this blind comes standard with the 4x4 landscaping treated post brackets. They come with the blind, so you don't have to buy them extra. And then all of the lags that are in the crate for this particular blind are what you use to install and build the wood base, if you want to be the wood base, if you want to use the wood base. So what we'll do next is our steel legs will get lagged through the double plates right there. You can see there's 4 of them. All right, so here's our access point where we disassembled the pallet. This is our last part. We pre-assembled the ladder before arriving to the property. All right, so we got her set up here, and again, we had the legs pre-assembled all the way down, cables on, and then this is our size of stuff. We have a deep well, what do you got there? 13 in the impact, and then we got a 13 on the screwdriver there, and that was for the brackets for the angle iron. And prior to that, we put the lags from the crate that the blind came in through the brackets that hold it to the floor. So now what we have Zeke doing is he's tightening up the cables. So the big thing is you don't want the cables tight until you get those angle irons on there. And the angle irons you see we got the flat side down. so that if we need to, for any reason, you know, if we got to get a wasp nest off underneath or something, we can stand on that angle iron and not worry about it. But he's tightening up the cables now. You'll see him cinch that up there, and so he's holding on to the eye bolt and turning the bracket, and that's sucking everything together. You can see that one tightened up nice. And we're looking for decently tight on those. All right, so now what we have to do is pivot this foot back onto the end so we can flip it up. All right, so we've got that tipped up. That was not actually that difficult. We just kind of had to do a clean and jerk on that and press it, and once we got it up, it went over pretty good. The one thing you do want to make sure of is that you kind of visualize where these angle brackets are going to be dropping when you tip it, because you can see that one actually snapped that tree, but if it was more stout of a tree branch, then it could have bent that angle iron, and you definitely don't want to do that, since that's your support. So now what we'll do is we start on this panel up top, but we first got to level it, and I'm going to show you how to do that without a level, since that's something we always forget to bring. All right guys, so here is how to do level like the Romans. When you don't have a level in the woods with you, you just have to use liquid. So what we did was we drank this pop down to where it was just below the label, because the label's straight, and then so is the bottle construction, where you can kind of see down there. So you can see that according to this fluid, we're high on camera right side. We're a little, the fluid is high, which means the stand is low. So we have to dig out that side, camera left side of the blind at the base, in order to make it level. Now, is this a big deal? I doubt you would have a clue when you were hunting, and you know, it might make your roof shed a little better. It's definitely, like if somebody leaves a window open or something, it's definitely not bad to have a little bit of an angle, just because, you know, if the floor was full of water, you obviously don't want it sitting there, because it's, you know, it's plywood fiberboard. So you'd want it to drain out instead of sit on the floor. So, you know, that's something that you would, you know, you can decide to fight it however much you want. But, you know, for working in the woods, you know, let's get this blind done. I don't know that that's a big deal as far as how level that is. So we'll dig it out a little bit, but like I said, I'm not super opposed to having a little bit of an angle on a blind, just because I know from managing so many properties that the hunter often leaves the window or the doors open, and you're not back for a month and a half, and when you get back, you got raccoon poop and rain in here, and you know, it's nice if it didn't totally ruin your stuff. So okay guys, gonna give you a little tip here for taking out just a smidge of dirt. What I'm gonna do, since I'm gonna run into roots and things underneath this foot that I don't know about, is I'm gonna use a Sawzall, and Zeke is gonna lift up a little bit on the leg, and then I'm just gonna come underneath it and shave, and then use the blade to kick that dirt out of there. Since you saw up top where we can't be more than, I don't even know, a half inch. I'm not gonna chase it too much, like I said, but we'll just get a little bit out of here so we're a little more level, and then our ladder will be able to sit a little more flush. And that's what we're gonna do. So I think this is a two-hand gig, so I don't know that I'm gonna be able to hold this camera, but I'm gonna try. So whenever you're ready, Zeke. Lift with your legs, please. All right, guys, so big thing here, get 2 panels up and just lay them on the floor, you know, sticking out the ladder right here, okay? And then get 2 guys up here, because you're gonna wanna make sure that you're holding this seam where it needs to go for those pre-tapped screws, okay? Don't bury the floor bolts right off the bat, because you're gonna wanna be able to shimmy this. Once you get every panel up here, you're gonna wanna be able to kind of shimmy it so that it all matches on the floor. It's never perfect, okay? But you drive these 3 bolts, there's 2 there, and then there's 1 up top. Drive those 3, and then do a floor bolt there, that'll be temporary, and then a floor bolt there, that'll be temporary, as you hand the rest of the panels up one at a time, because now it should be able to be handled by 1 human. So I'm gonna hand the panel straight up from the ground, since this is only an 8-foot platform. If it was higher than that, you'd probably have to walk it up the ladder. So this is a physically able-bodied type of a situation here. And then once he gets it up, he's going to leave this open because that's our access point. So we're going to work around this way, and then the door will be the last panel to go on. All right, so I handed that one up, and Zeke had the drill at his feet over there by panel number 2. That's the farthest panel away. So he's now drilling just the bolts that are holding the 2 panels together. He's not doing the floor bolts. He's just getting that wall up. Now what's going to help you here is the wind is from camera left right now. There's just a little bit of a breeze. And we wanted to leave the ladder side open because that door is really heavy. So we wanted to leave that ladder side open. And I should say this, actually, we screwed this up. This side right here is actually labeled door, but we couldn't see that when it was upside down. The reason for that, we kind of figured it out, is that is an access panel there if you want a trapdoor entry. But what happens is, if you want a trapdoor entry, we kind of overthunk it. You would want your ladder where you're coming from, you know, where the hunter's coming from. You would want your ladder under the deck, and then you would want it to go up to the far side, and then that's where you would get into the blind, at the far side, and then your door panel would be at the back still, you know, so if you ever wanted to do a ladder out the back, you could. But we screwed that up because this over here is actually not labeled for the door. It's actually over here, which is labeled for the door. So something to look at there. All right, more panels. So now we've got 4 panels up. Zeke will be running the bolts together on this one. And all he looks for is a nice tight seam between the 2 panels. You do not have to caulk between the 2 panels. I suppose you could if you wanted to, but there is a trim piece that goes over that. All right, now stuff that we did not do just to protect ourselves when we put this up near some buckthorn. We left the window film on. It is a little harder to get off now that they're all up, but we just didn't want to scratch them on buckthorn branches when they were going up. So we left those on. Those can be taken off earlier if you want. This is the roof. This is kind of a rhino liner over the same stuff that the floor is made out of. So what we do now is, without the door on, we bring the roof up the ladder, and then that goes on the top, but you put it to the back of the blind just a little bit, because then we go get the door and we put the door on completely, and then we'll kind of jockey that roof down into place. And then before we anchor all the floor bolts, what we look at is the reveal. We don't anchor it to the floor completely, because that reveal right there at the base of the siding is what will tell us whether or not the blind is in the right spot. So we'll get all the wall panels anchored together, and then we'll look at the bottom and we can jockey this around. So for instance, you can see right there, we have on the left side about a 1/2 inch of that panel, and over here it's tight. So we're going to want to twist this blind to camera left so that it's tight against all of the framing, and then we can make sure that we can put some caulking or some spray foam around that too, so that we're bug free up there. That's big. All right guys, so here's the hairy part of it. That blind is 7 feet tall. So unless you have somebody with you that's like 6'4" or better, you're gonna really struggle to go up the ladder and then just go right up and over that leading edge. So what we're gonna do is, we've got the roof inside the blind now. We're gonna lift up and just tip it out. And that's gonna be as much as we can do, just because he's 6 foot and I'm 5'10". So it's just, we don't have quite the reach necessary to lift with that angle. So here we go. Okay, so we got the tote up here so we can stand on it. And what we're gonna make sure of is that we have a floor bolt in each corner. One about here, one about there where Zeke is. He's got another one over there. And then one on the back wall. And then one over here. So that when the roof goes up, we're not pushing the walls right off the side. All right, so here's the key to that roof, guys. You need a step ladder or some kind of a boost of at least a foot, because I'm 5'10" and I can barely reach the top of this panel. So I didn't have any leverage to help lift up and over that. So if you're 5'10", 5'11", just make sure you have something that's about a foot tall. Zeke is 6 feet, but he still needed a little extra. But then it was easy. All I had to do was help him lift initially, and then he just walked it up and over the wall, and we were able to set it down, and now we can position it just fine. And then we'll get all the floor bolts loosened up, jockey the base around a little bit, and then anchor them where they're supposed to go after we straighten out the carpet. See, you got 2 handles on the door there, so it keeps it tight at the top and the bottom. Good stout steel on the ladder.